If you struggle with shame and like feeling guilty or like you're bad or like maybe you're not doing good enough, I have a book recommendation for you. It's called Unlearning Shame. It's by Devin Price, and it's just phenomenal. I can't say enough good things about it. But if you feel overwhelmed by reading a whole book, it is on Audible. But if you feel overwhelmed by tackling the whole book, I just want to share two of the main concepts with you that are feeling so valuable to me. Okay, so let me just share my screen. So the way that Devin Price describes what shame is related to is by using the phrase systemic shame. Okay, so systemic shame, he goes into it in like really great detail about where systemic shame came from, but basically it's like the legacy of puritanical Christianity. So this like it's not like the original vibe of Jesus, who was very into community and supporting each other and like taking care of the weak and all of that. But the Puritans took on this like very individualized, very like more capitalistic, like do it yourself type of vibe. And that has endured and is something that we have inherited. So if it's in you, in your inner dialogue, most of us think it's just like us being critical of ourselves for things that are actually like right that we should be striving towards. And when you see these values that make up systemic shame, it's very startling because all of these have a very positive connotation in our weird society, Western educated, industrialized, rich democracies. So, all of these have positive connotations. I would say one, consumerism. There's like some people who are more into sustainability and like eco whatever. Environmentalism, who are a little bit more concerned about consumerism, and some people feel concerned about wealth, but otherwise, these words have pretty positive connotations for most of us. So perfectionism is something that I used to be really proud of. Like, oh, I'm a perfectionist. I would say that in job interviews as if it was a good thing. The definition of perfectionism, according to Dr. Devon Price, is only endless, flawless work and accomplishment matters. So it is very common, especially in neurodivergent and autistic communities, to have a lot of hyper perfectionism because of having a childhood of being told that you're doing it wrong so much. So we can like swing the pendulum the other way and try to be so perfect so that we can try to reduce the amount of criticism that we're receiving. But this can be debilitating because if you notice, it's not actually reaching like a certain goal that makes you matter. It's the endlessness of the work and the accomplishment. So it never ends. So perfectionism is in its nature like impossible to achieve, not just because there's no such thing as perfect, but because the definition of it is that you have to keep doing it over and over and over for the rest of your life. Um, Individualism, again, a lot of people feel like it's really positive to be an individual, to be independent. Everything that we do completely alone. That is so hyper focus in a lot of white American communities, right? That you've got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Don't ask for help. Don't take government assistance. That one is so drilled into us. Asking for help is just unacceptable. Consumerism, who we are is what we buy and own. This one is just like startling the ways in which that people are making a video. Do you need something? Okay, just give me 5 minutes. Um, this one is super startling in the way that is just like deep in everybody's system. Who we are is what we buy and own. The way that he describes the way that this is, like we buy things in order to like prove that we're good, in all sorts of ways. It's fascinating and just shows you how like, oh my gosh, all of it's ridiculous. Like all of the ways that we try to make up for systemic problems like the environment. Then we're supposed to buy organic food and, not use plastic bags. Our health, we're supposed to like have strict, perfect diets and buy expensive supplements and have expensive gyms. Beauty, we're supposed to spend tons of money like controlling our bodies and changing them. All everything is put back onto the individual, and the individual is required to buy shit to fix the problems that the system created, right? And then ownership is such a like huge part of this. If you don't own something, then there's something wrong with you, and so everybody's like way overburdened with that in order to own things like cars and phones and houses and whatever. Okay, and which the consumerism feeds right into wealth. The only power that matters is economic power over others. So again, the wealth is not to meet your needs or to be able to be generous or to be able to follow your passion. It's to have power over others because the only power that's recognized is economic power. Personal responsibility that everything is up to you and you cannot ask for help. If you do, it shows that you have failed and it puts you in danger, right? So, like, if you didn't do it, you're the problem, right? If you like are working a job or don't have a job that doesn't pay all of your bills, that's your fault. You should have tried harder. Don't tell anyone about it. Don't ask for any help, right? So all of these have actually, they're not just like what good people value. These have been created and structured specifically through these like religious, economic groups that have very effectively used these to control large groups of people. Because when people are divided up, and they are only valued if they have wealth and power, then it's very easy to keep them all disempowered. Pre agriculturalism, which separated people each onto their own little farms. Pre then was the hunter gatherer communities, right? Where there were very low rates, like basically poverty didn't exist because everyone was understood themselves as a part of one group. And so it wouldn't have made sense for someone to not be taken care of. There was a social responsibility rather than personal responsibility. And then once people split up into these agricultural groups, and it was like one individual family, that's when we started seeing poverty and starvation and, high infant mortality rates, etc. It's fascinating the way that, also the way that, oh my gosh, he describes how the advertising companies worked with lawmakers to influence, to put the responsibility of things like massive car accidents back on the public by creating jaywalking laws, and then the responsibility of people dying from cigarette smoke back on the individuals by creating all these laws where it was like the company couldn't be held accountable for all the addiction and toxins that were getting into people's bodies through cigarettes. They even had a law that said, like, if a child is in a room and is affected by cigarette smoke, then it's like the child's responsibility to leave the room. Ridiculous things. They did this again with drugs, with alcohol, with health stuff related to the foods that have toxins in them, and then they make it people's responsibilities to like buy fancier food that doesn't have those things in it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It'll blow your mind. It'll help you realize like this is not just, you have not just failed to like learn how to be a good person. This is not the definition of a good person. This is the definition of a disempowered person who's easily controlled by a corrupt economic system. Okay, so now that we know what that inner voice is related to, it's not like our higher self trying to help us. Now that we know that it was created and put into place by the systemic shaming system, we can consider offering ourselves the opportunity to unlearn and to invite in what Devin Price calls expansive recognition. Really beautiful. Okay, the values of expansive recognition, acceptance. The things you're afraid of or ashamed of are a part of what makes you lovable. Okay, so when we accept something within ourselves or within someone else, we can love that part of their humanity if we're willing to say, like, yeah, you're allowed to have things that you struggle with, right? When we're vulnerable with others, we are able to celebrate our shared humanity, like, oh, you're human, so am I. And that brings us closer together, actually. Vulnerability is the only way to have actual intimacy. Perfectionism does not allow for intimacy, right? And that true connection that so much of us are craving. Coalition building, our shared humanity builds strength in community. So it is the same part of your brain lights up when you help someone else as when you receive help, right? So our mammal selves evolved to be able to use that co-regulation that the vagus nerve turns on, that social engagement system, to strengthen our survival through shared resources, shared protection, shared working together, right? Coalition building. Compassion. When you judge yourself less, you feel open to judging others less, and vice versa. It builds on itself. When I'm kinder to others, I'm kinder to myself. When I'm kinder to myself, I'm kinder to others, right? Humility. When I say, I can't, I don't know how, I don't want to, when I'm not trying to be perfect, I open up all of these possibilities. I both taking care of myself, but allowing others to do and build capacity for them own selves when I am not trying to control everybody around me, fix everything for them, right? So much enabling that happens with perfectionism because I'm out here trying to fix not just myself, but everybody else, right? So acceptance, vulnerability, coalition building, compassion, humility. Now, building these things takes a great deal of courage. It takes, most of us cannot do it alone, right? It takes being able to have that compassionate witness with a therapist or um, a coach or a very trusted person who's on the journey with you to start to open up some of these things that we have been taught to be ashamed of, and to be able to gather evidence for that. Actually, we may lose some relationships, we may lose some societal privileges like certain kinds of wealth or status, but we may actually gain some intimacy and joy and connection that we are cut off from when we're up here in the systemic shame. So, anyways, I'm gonna be sharing more about this because I think it's really incredibly powerful and very beautifully lined up with Human Design 2027 stuff. That, when you start to recognize that your body is not wrong, that your body is a beautiful animal deserving of so much loving care, that when you're tired, you deserve to rest, that when you're hungry, you deserve to eat, when you're wanting to play, that's the right thing to feel like doing. You are not lazy. You are not unhealthy. You are not a problem. You are not bad. You have been taught these things in order to support a system that was based on keeping us disempowered. And we now have the information, the resources, and we've always had the inner opportunity to choose these things for ourselves, because if you notice, none of these values under expansive recognition require you to have or do or be anything. They are all things that we can offer ourselves in our heart, offer others in our hearts. It is exactly what Viktor Frankl offered himself and the people around him when he was in the concentration camp. and was the most disempowered a person can be, and was able to offer these things to himself and the situation and find inner peace and freedom through that. And that's something that's always available to us, no matter if we have any kind of environmental circumstances, which is what is another indication if you are trying to notice within yourself, is this systemic shame or is this expansive recognition? You can ask that question, like, is it require me to do or be or have anything? If it does, it's probably systemic shame. If it's something that is always available to you within your heart, regardless of environmental circumstances, then it is probably expensive recognition. And that can be a nice differentiation for you when you're hearing a criticism of yourself and you think it might be your higher self. Check in and see if it might be a spiritual manager who has been trained by systemic shame to shame you and control you into pointing out that you don't have, or you're not doing or being something that you're supposed to be in order to be able to get love. Expansive recognition is based off of your inherent value that was given to you the second you breathed your first breath and can never be taken away, and um, is a spiritual principle that is not something that was created and masqueraded as a spiritual manager like so many of our religions were to control us, but was actually just inherent to you. So, anyways, I love you all so much. Please check out the book if you're interested in more. It's really powerful. And I just love everything that Devin writes in general. He's got a Substack that's really beautiful and profound as well. So I'll put both of those things in the description. He's also coming out with a book called Unmasking for Life. He already has a book called Unmasking Autism, which is excellent, and Laziness Does Not Exist, which I haven't read yet, which is probably also excellent. But this new book, Unmasking for Life, I think is going to be very exciting. It's coming out this month. So you can pre-order it. Okay, I love you, love you.